Okay, we continue. So we are technically on Principle 7, Rule 7, Law 7. And even though I said that for those of us now, it's kind of when we go to the PRL 6, that's kind of when we die, because we can only do the Principle 7, Rule 7, Law 7 as part of the 1-7 pillar, and that will be the end of our lives as well. So we will technically, in a way, do that, but we can do it in a little bit of a downgraded version, as in kind of the correct commitment is key to any progress. Kind of gives itself. Teamwork in projects, probably not going to happen in this reality. We might be connected to projects in the parallel universal matrix, or those of you who fall into the dark abyss there with whatever is connected there, which is technically the PRL 7. And the law, of course, of effect. Whatever program you're under, whatever faction that is running you, whatever you will become part of, will determine kind of whatever you will perceive, what will be part of your relative reality. So people that are in the base program will be part of that one as little insectoid worker bees, and they will do teamwork in different projects that are administered by the different races that are taking over reality field, and the cause and effect of these choices will lead them to the position when they die, and what will be their correct partnership and what would be the type of responsibility they have developed within the developmental program they're part of, and the law of the cycle of genetic and energetic affinity will then determine the cause and effect of their endeavor. So that's kind of what that trinity is about. I want to touch a little bit with Principle 8, Rule 8, and Law 8, because the correct expression of energy, the correct progression goals for the project or community as a team. And here we work with a team as in kind of those of us who are going to do the transition out of here. That is our unseen team. We are working as individuals, but we're technically part of that group that want to get out of here. And the law of correct function and correct use of energy. And we should be mindful that that field that we then participate in, we must definitely express our energies correctly, as well as have the correct function and correct use of that energy that will be provided to us. So that means that if you are fucking everything up around yourself and you want to do that one due to the law of the one, if you're not mastering the other principles, and you would be led into that group that will be the transition as in kind of under the PRL 6, then you would fuck it all up. So you will not get there. So you have to master the 6 levels of your energy system to even be able to participate in those of us who are doing the transition out of here. And that goes with PRL 8. Because if you can't express the right type of energy, the laws of energy and the laws of the cycles will not pull you to that vibrational state and that energy system you're supposed to be part of. And therefore, you will not have the correct progression goals as a team that goes with the ones that are leaving. And you will not have the correct function and the correct use of energy that allows you, that shows you the true will, the true sign of goodwill to get out of there and become part of the original realities. So it goes without saying that people kind of get stagnated there. And that's also when we talk about the whole, where do you get into the Andromedan system in the PRL 9? When you have completed 3-9 pillar to the dot and you have worked through the different cycles and you get to cycle 9, where you are allowed to work your way out with whatever you have achieved through the 3-9 pillar. But you have also at that point worked with the 4-10 pillar and 5-11 pillar and 6-12 pillar. So you know all the laws, you know everything that governs reality fields. And there you choose whether you want to stay, if you want to go into the Andromeda galaxy and jump galaxies, so to speak, that goes with the higher level. And that goes with density 3. So that's part of, again, we have density 1 that goes with the PRL 1, 2, and 3. You have density 2 that goes with PRL 4, 5, and 6. You have density 3 that goes with PRL 7, 8, and 9. You have density 4 that goes with PRL 10, 11, and 12. You see how it's also neatly tied together. It's not very difficult actually to understand what you are to achieve on the different levels of the pillars, as the first 6 foundational doing the outer and the middle domain, and then to be able to get into the inner domain and working there in density 3, you have to have nailed all of the work in the outer and the middle domain. So that kind of goes with that, because then you have the complete understanding of what is happening, and then you're not not being pulled into whatever you need to be pulled into by your will, but you're pulled in by the laws, which is something completely different because you have earned your right to be there. So with that, I will want to jump into the 12 natural laws of energy utilization that goes with page 10. I'm not going to go deeper into it, but I just want to read what I actually write there. So now you get it, because when we did the new Grand Cycle Transition, Sciences 1 and 2, that course material, I just kind of skipped the laws a little bit. And I'm not going to go further into the laws because they are kind of connected to your code system. And not until you work on the code system will you truly understand the laws. But I've given a sum up here as the moment you enter into the 3-9 pillar and work with Trinity systems and learn to transmute, the law themselves will become obvious because you're kind of working with it all the time. You will understand the law by doing it. It's not about understanding the law by studying it. It's like when you study the law for the bar or for become a solicitor or anything. You can study as much as you like, but it's in practical court cases where you really express the law, where you have different issues you need to figure out. And that's why we have this whole system where, anyways, I'm not going to go further into that, but so you just understand that one. And that's technically when we talk about the ones that are working with the laws in their specific feature as laws themselves. That's not part of the pentagram, even though the pentagram has what we call a judge. But that's why you personally learn to work with the laws as part of a fourfold feature where you are either warrior or a diplomat, where you are a scientist or teacher, and where you have some, and then you have the judge feature, and then you have some kind of power, whether it's elder or it's kind of some sort of engineering or administration or something that goes with that understanding of responsibility for others and self and a system. That's part of what the pentagram was opposed to, where you really learn to understand your individuality as part of a system and not just because of your own inclinations and what you want to achieve. And there, the judge part of you understand the laws completely, where you work with that in that manner using the other features of your personality structure that goes with being in some power position, that goes with having some kind of function and some kind of purpose, whatever that means, where you can say a warrior or a teacher to do that simple version of it. Then you're either fighting to protect and defend, or as a teacher there, you either work to develop and progress, right? But you can both be a warrior and a teacher. You don't have to be either or. Some of you have swapped between these two things. And then we had as a kind of those who used to be warriors in the previous cycles, some of them turned to become teachers in this one because they wanted to teach how to avoid the wars by doing progression work instead. So you kind of see that some of the humanoids that chose that one. And others of us that were warriors in the previous one, we chose, no, I'm not going to do in my progression work as part of the pillars or as part of the science projects or part of whatever's going on in the reality. I choose to be an engineer, or I choose to be elder and do the political stuff and do the main decisions, or I choose to become a scientist and be in the workstations and what have you. So we chose these different features. So they are part of our personality matrix as well. And then there are the judges that chose to be that entirely, and they work with the laws themselves. We have the expressions in the Bainer materials, the karma laws, and what we can kind of, it's really, really destroyed and distorted into the time laws, which is completely, there is no time, so therefore there is no time laws. That's dark features. Karma laws are dark features as well. These are a part of the Dark Avatar Collective. But the original function of, because the word Lord itself goes with the Anu network, only the Anus work with the concepts of Lord. That means you are in control of something and you control others. That's what the Lord is all about. So it's not about being a master. It's about being a Lord that oversees others in some kind of power structure that is distorted. But when we talk about the original understanding of kind of the law of the cycles, are kind of that science that goes with that. And the judges were about these developmental laws that governs the developmental programs. So that is a specific group that work with that. And they are, many of them never really chose to be in any form whatsoever, because that part is connected to the sixth cycle and is connected to the law of the cycles, and it's connected to the spherical level of the energy system, where all of the 6 levels are completely completed, and therefore they have this insight into all levels of realities and worlds and galaxies and what have you. So they are kind of we could call them translucent, semi-organic, semi-manifested, semi-configuration beings. They are something, a class entirely for themselves. Those who, after the pentagram and the reversal and the fifth cycle, chooses to go into the sixth cycle and become part of the judges that are there. Formless, shapeless, more energy and more consciousness than anything else. Of course, they have a form and a shape, but not as we understand it within the core domain. They're kind of connected to the core domain. That's what I want to say, but they're not connected to the inner domain, the middle domain, the outer domain, where we have configurations. So they are in density 4. They are part of the highest level of all systems, and therefore they are the lawmakers. So that's a completely different thing. They understand everything. They are the all-seeing beings of everything. Technically, the level of the ancient ones. So the natural laws of energy determine the energies we utilize in our energy system. That's the code system. When the energies are used correctly, we are allowed to reconnect to the reality holographic grids, and more energy will flow into our energy system via the base field and the organic holographic grid structure in the density 2. And that is what we need to understand with the middle domain, the restoration program. That's what we're trying to, that's the field we're trying to connect to, not the planet, not what's going on in this reality, but that original part that connected to the restoration program, the 6-dimensional energy field that originally took its foundation in the Pillar Project, which I have explained here, the transformative energy system to undo the effects of the timeline event, to get to the point where we can either discard our template completely and just take out what's left of viable genetics and let the rest evaporate and cease to exist, or we can reconfigure and reconstruct some of the template consciousness units embedded into our 6-dimensional energy system. And then what we will pull out through the restoration program gate system in the middle domain in the 6th dimension will then be of enough foundation to create what we need to create in the reality field that is constructed for the purpose in between the original cycles and this solar system. When we go through the restoration program steps out through the gate system, we will get there, and then whatever we have got with us will then link up to the holographic grids there due to the laws of energy and consciousness units, and then technology that will develop some sort of form will be applied and assist you to create a holographic structure configuration from where you can take on some kind of feature that will allow you to work with the holographic teaching systems that are placed there for a time being, just as an energy system, not as a real organic form, because there's no purpose there. You just need to have some kind of complex information system to be able to be pulled back into the original true worlds and the original cycles, where you then will be in place in what you have achieved in this intermediary section between our folding system and the restoration program energy system reconstructed for the purpose and whatever we got left of our template. Cycling there in the intermediary field for a while, that will, once we enter into that one, we will have no connection to the parallel universal matrix or the dark avatar collective or anything that's going on in our sector. We will completely disengage from that because we have reconfigured ourselves into something completely different in that little orb thing that will leave this system when we die. And there we will begin all over, taking cycle 1, 2, 3, and 4 within that intermediary system. And some will master it only in the first 3 cycles and then be swooped into the original system or universal cycles. And others will have to take a 4th cycle before they're ready to go there, all depending on what they used to be and how high level they were once. But there will never be a 5th cycle because that's kind of a return cycle in whatever system you're having. So therefore, it's more likely it will just be the first 3 cycles, for some the 4th, which will then be some kind of consolidation of what is already there. And then what's left in this intermediary will then at some point when the time is right be pushed into the original elevation cycle, will be re-emplaced. And then that intermediary system will collapse and cease to exist completely because it is a semi-artificial construction. And when it has served its purpose, it will dissolve. And then there will be a huge gap between the parallel universal matrix and the dark avatar collective. And there will be no bridges anymore between these two systems. That's the final bifurcation. I'm not going to read the 12 laws because I have done that so many times. It's just so you kind of understand that structure. So when we use the laws wrongly, the grid's closed down, and that means the door to the intermediary field that I'm talking about step by step until there's nothing left but regression and distortion. So this is the end cycle for us. Either we make it and get through the gate system when we die and into that where we can start all over and cycle in there for a period of time until we got what we need, and then we will transform all of us and then everything will dissolve. And if we don't make it if there's a period of time for that, so to speak, all depending on the elevation cycles of the true worlds, or depending on how quickly they move. But whatever is there will be then drawn in and in place to whatever level. But if they choose to stay put for a while on a specific level, we will have a longer time to reconfigure ourselves in the intermediary system. And if they just choose to say, no, we need to bifurcate now because the dark avatar is getting too strong, then whatever we have become will be pulled in and will be recalibrated and put into whatever can, or put in pralaya until there is a cycle ready for us in the next universal cycle setup, which is okay as well, as long as we don't get sucked into the abyss, right? So it's just a matter of that one. But if we fail, then we can't get through these gate systems. And that's why some of the races that have not got the ability, they choose my energy system and my work with them to do what they can't do. That's my work of compassion, technically. That's what I do. And that's why my energy system is special. And even though I know many of you are saying I talk about being a walk-in, but this is my original configuration I came in with when I entered in from the Andromeda cycle, which I talk about in the perception logs. And then I have this physical form, which I have adapted over 50 years to be able to do this work. So I've got two personality matrices of which is the curse of the walk-in, that you have the one you take over and her timelines and her karma and her shit, which I have been using the first 40 or 50 years of my life actually to clear out, and then the activation of my own original energy system and gaining what was chopped up and divided by the different races that I got into this system, what I had engineered to get into this system with, which is a finite energy system as well. It doesn't bridge into the original worlds because that would be ridiculous, right? I would not enter into a hostile system with an energy system and a template that would allow the races to get out using my genetics and then create a bridge and then go in and take over the true worlds. Of course not. It's a finite system engineered for this purpose. And the purpose is to do what I'm doing exactly now, and also to release and to get back what needs to go back and what is part of the original internal strife, and close all of that down so that when I am done, everything I have been part of is done, cleared, shut down, no more unfinished business. Okay. So in this one, I want to touch ground a little bit we have talked about the 12 choices of living, and we are now jumping into something else, because technically the whole energy and process of the Trinity systems and all of this, that goes in with the last one, which you're finding on page 10, which I referred to many times, the highest progression rate, the highest standards, and the highest purity rate. And these things kind of follows again with the Trinity structure we have had with the laws, goes with the purity rate, the standards goes with the will and the rules, and the progression rate goes with the principles. And that's the ninefold Trinity structure I'm talking about, where you have the top one with the will and the word and the wisdom, and to do it in the right way from top to bottom, the word, the will, and the wisdom on the right. And that's also why when we talk about the will, that is on the left. That's why the left-wing brothers, they kind of got stuck in their personality matrix and are kind of fucking the laws and turning the laws into their personal needs. So that's where their wisdom turns dark and gets inverted. But those of us who are doing it the right way, we are working with our personality structure and our will according to the system we're part of, according to the universal cycles. And that means we're syncretic. We are working together to lift everyone into the highest progression rate. And we are also setting our energy system to the high standards of the system we are part of. And we are working with our organic vessel and the laws to the highest purity rate, because we remember very, very far back that whatever energy was brought into these universal cycles were of the previous universal cycles, and they need to be purified to the highest purity rate, so that what will be transferred into the next universal cycles will be of the highest energetic feature as possible, the highest code systems, the most complex information systems, which follows the laws, which are the laws of which we work with energy, which follows the high standards of which how we interact with each other as races and lineages, and the highest progression rate of the cycles and the work that we're doing here. So whatever transfers into the new universal cycles has the top notch of everything that's possible to create. And the 12 choices of living add to the rules of engagement and the principles to guarantee an equal progression possibility for all. The 12 choices thus support our work to attain the highest purity rate, the highest standards, and the highest progression rate. That's the last piece, as in kind of what you need to have in the back of your head when you do your choices. It's kind of choices of living, as in kind of this is how I choose to express the principles, the rules, and the laws, and I express that in a type of living. So at the end of the day, when you kind of am I to do this and that, whatever choice and whatever challenge comes our way, then you have the 12 choices of living as the last kind of way on the scale, as in kind of that's the last pit you put on, so you are in balance and you understand this is how I am to develop myself to reach the high standards and the highest progression rate. And since our system has been so thwarted and twisted and manipulated, our 12 choices are, of course, a reflection of that. So these 12 choices of living are going against, this is why we really put our sword in the sand and saying kind of putting all of the energies of the laws into the sword and make it a flame sword, and then we push it into the soil that we're standing and making a huge blast around ourselves and say, the laws are my shield, and by that shield I exist, and by that shield I choose these choices of living. And that is 1. I do not exploit other life forms to sustain my existence. 2. I do not exploit other life forms to support my progression. 3. I do not exploit other life forms to uphold or sustain my vessel. 4. I do not harness energy from others to build my energy system. 5. I do not take anything from others to support my progression. 6. I do not take anything from others to uphold my vessel. 7. I do not use the genetics from others to sustain my template. 8. I do not use the genetics from others to continue my lineage or my race. 9. I do not use the genetics from others to develop or sustain my organic vessel. 10. I do not interfere with the realities of other life forms to sustain my existence. 11. I do not interfere with the realities of other life forms to do my progression. And 12. I do not interfere with the realities of other life forms to develop, uphold, or sustain my organic vessel. And of course, you can see here that 1, 2, and 3 goes with the outer domain. 4, 5, and 6 goes with the middle domain. 7, 8, and 9 goes with the inner domain. And 10, 11, and 12 goes with the highest domain that we are having in our sector, that is fallen. So that means when we go into this understanding that our sector, our universal scheme is fucked. So to speak, density 1, 2, 3, and 4 are completely fucked. So in the outer domain we are here in, we do not exploit other life forms. We do not exploit on any ways to continue and support and sustain our existing progression or our vessel. So that means we have to be observant. That's why we are to become plant eaters and use the original Pleiadian nutrition dynamics to transform and re-energize what is in a plant. So we release what is ever there, and then we just work with the energy and the grid energies of it, so it becomes transformational energy that we can absorb in our physical form and continue the transformation of the outer domain frequency energies into density energies, which we will then reconfigure our intestines to become part of. And we do not support our progression by exploiting other life forms. We do not use other people to further our own progression. We do not replicate their genetics so we can get a front line in the queue. We work our way steady and sternly in the right direction using all of the original laws, the original principles, and the original rules. And we do not in any way or forms use other people to uphold our vessels. That means we are not doing organ transplants. We are not using little dragon moths or little moths or whatever to produce whatever medicine we need to do, a specific type of protein injection or what have you. So this is part of where we have to be very observant of what we're actually ingesting, as in kind of when you do nature medicine or you do probiotics, for instance, little microorganisms that are kind of, it's good for your intestines. No, you're eating other little life forms that are being grown to sustain your vessel. No go. Absolutely no go. And no, you don't produce it yourself either. You learn to produce that right enzyme structure in your intestines by doing the correct energy work and eat the right food. You don't create life forms to sustain your vessel to give you health. Complete no-go. So this is the many of you that are doing the whole plant-based. Oh, I love that taste of this and that, whatever. Yeah, sorry dude, sorry girl. This is a transgression. That's why you love it. It's a parasitic desire you are having. Technically, if we were to put it in the highest level possible, we would only eat green leaves. And we would create these green leaves ourselves, and we would work with the soil and clear the soil and clear the seed and do anything. And hopefully at some point we would actually be able to energetically create it ourselves and not need to eat of our planet, which is also a transgression. But it's made up that way. And let's see how the future and the density energies, what they will bring to us. So this is very, very important that you are in the understanding of the first three principles that goes with the outer domain of non-exploitation. And then we go into density 2 and we go into the PRLs 4, 5, and 6. And we here go with the next set of choices, not to harness energy or take anything from others or take anything to uphold our vessels. Again, it goes with energy system. It goes with the principles and the rules and the laws. It goes with the word and the will and the wisdom. And it goes with your threefold energy system. And it goes with the organic vessel. And it goes with the low energy system or the high energy system. And it goes with the template or your consciousness units. Okay. So it's kind of all put together there in different versions. So we don't take energy from others. And that's where when we talk about the prohibiting technologies in the emotional field that are engineered to constantly interfere with other people, that's kind of seen as a harnessing. So therefore we really need to learn to contain our own energies and vibrate in a way so we segregate and don't take from each other and don't interfere with each other and become harmless in that way. And we don't take anything from others to support our progression, as in kind of, I give a lot of things out there for free, but I do it because it's part of my work to give information and give the sciences. But I'm also very observant of I'm not to giving too much, because in a way I then force other people to get too high level information for free, which is a kind of stealing, because they're not giving anything in return. There's no balance there. There's no give and take in a balanced way as a kind of dynamic opposition where we progress to the highest progression rate, both of us, because I'm just giving and there's no return. And you can say, well, how do I know that? Will they actually work in their way doing the free material I'm offering out there if it were to be put in the middle domain level? No, because I wouldn't know, because when we get to the middle domain level, that goes with the correct partnership and the correct way of working in this density 2 system, where we actually are supposed to work within our racial lineages. We have to have encounters. And if there are no humans encountering back and doing some kind of return and not returning shit in writing emails and all that contamination comes my way, because that's again the distorted version of it, as in trying balancing. I've given something out, and that's why whenever people are receiving this and they're not working with it correctly, then they vibrate out for a short period of time, and to balance their energy system, their shit is sent my way. So therefore I'm also to balance that and say, okay, the ones that really want to go into the higher energies, They must pay for the courses. They must actively participate in this. And they must at some point have conversations with me. As long as they're just working on PRL1, it's fine. They can do the self-studies. But if they do want to go into PRL2 and the principles of correct engagement and counterbalance and how we are working as oppositions to create higher levels of progression dynamics, then there has to be conversations. That's what takes people to Principle 2, where they really begin to work with me and we can mirror each other in the correct way and we can support each other in the correct way, or whatever will come in that type of opposition dynamic that will be created. So therefore, that is very, very important that that comes in play. So that's where the whole sessions come in. So I'm kind of secured myself as in, people that just want to do PRL1, they will just do the courses on their own. The ones that want to push it into PRL2, they will have encounters with me and work with me in sessions, but still do their own stuff. And the ones that really want to go into the highest level of that one, well, then that kind of is still done on their own, because that was where they go into the Trinity, and that's where they really will learn to work with the system as their progression partner and not me as a person. So see how that one develops as well. So people that are just, so I have to not give too much out there for free, because that will create transgression in them and transgression in me, because they're taking without giving, and what they're giving are destroying me. So I have to be the one that's in control of that, because they don't know of that, right? Forgive them. They don't know better. So this is my responsibility. That's part of Principle 2, to ensure that that does not happen, which I have learned the hard way. And when we go into density 3, then it's about, we do not use the genetics from others' templates or other races or other things to develop our organic vessels. That's the Dark Avatar Collective. That's against that one. Saying, I don't do that. Whatever you offer to me of inserted snakes and deals and contracts and what have you that supports my template or my race or my vessel, fuck you. I'd rather sacrifice whatever you offer and then just go into depletion and cease to exist than taking something from others to sustain or continue or develop myself. Hell no. That's Dark Avatar Collective. That's the contract that sells your soul to the devil. That's what that's all about. Of course, you have to mess things up in the first 6 choices to get to that point, but that's, you will get there once you begin to enter the mental field. You will have a lot of thoughts. If only I do this, if only I do that, I will get this, I'll get that, and that will support me, and that will this, and that whatever. You will continue, you will be this and that, whatever. And you just said kindly, no, thank you. I'll get through here, do what I need to do on my own. And of course, some of them will mess around with you, still take control of you, but you will constantly work as if you have declined the offer. And then you are working against your free will. You're working against your original purpose. And then technically at the end of the day, that will create transgression in them, because they're enslaving you. And that is against all of the original laws, especially if you constantly are clearing yourself to stand in the light of the progressive systems. If you fall and you then align with their system, then you become part of their rules, and therefore there will be no further transgression. So that's also part of the plot that's going on. So you have to fight to stand in your true light. Okay. So, and then of course we have the highest density, where we don't interfere with the realities of others and it's so forth. And that goes with density 4. And that of course goes with the high level of those of us who were part of the density 4 or got to the core domains. And we have that in our energy field. Clearly that is not what we're here to do. That's not part of our configuration. So the 12 choices are technically configurations that you build into your energy system, and you build it into your code systems by doing it, by exemplifying it, constantly making the choices. And if you can't make that choice in an amicable way that kind of goes with what we could call normal human behavior, then you must sacrifice. You have to cut it loose, let it go. And that's part of the cross and that 4-cycle program that goes in there, where things had gone so wrong, and therefore people lost their sight of the right choices. And then it all became the choices of me and myself and my energy system, and how do I continue my existence. And many of you are driven in that when you do this work. You still haven't figured out what's actually driving you. You just have this drive to do it, but you don't really know if it's the original genetics or if it's actually parasitic influence that are just trying to uphold their own existence. So they are using you to get there, and they are manipulating you to think like they do so they can remain inside your vessel. But if you work against what they are saying there, that's why I want to talk about me and how did I do this when I get rid of the energy system and the original matrix that were part of this body. I technically destroyed everything that was in it and said, yeah, if I die, I die. Because this is so much not who I am. This is not how I want to live. This is not the world I want to be a part of. These are not the relationships I want to engage in because I'm being objectified. I'm being used and misused and abused and what have you. And no, thank you. This is not how we do it. And all of these kind of things. So what were my guiding light in all of this were the principles. And the original understanding of that was part of my original engineering of the vessel. I came in with having these 12 building blocks in me. So whatever level I would be working on, I would reject it because I do not exploit. I do not harness. I do not use. I do not interfere. It's part of my higher template energy system I came in with when I came here. And that's part of my original template I configured and created for this mission. So that's why after it was chopped up and eventually I got the pieces of my original template and original energy system back from the different races because they discovered that on density 1, the grays and what have you, they could not use my physical energies whatsoever because everything that was connected there had kind of gone on no exploitation. So that meant whatever they were harvesting energies from me or harvesting eggs from my uterus or whatever, I tried to create hybrid children, these children began to decay and go into evaporation because they had the code sequence in them, no exploitation, and they were born in transgression completely. So they died. As well as with harnessing energy. That's part of my density 2 level. So nothing can be taken from me to support other people and support other life forms. So when the density 2 races under the hijackers tried to replicate my energy system that were part of my original configuration, and they divided that, including the template, amongst themselves so they could get genetics and original holographic unit code systems. They would get to that block eventually and all their projects would crumble and fall because it was part of my configuration and it can't be changed because I engineered that energy system and that template from outside the system. So it cannot be altered. It is created on a completely different level of reality. And therefore, no matter how much they try and align me to their realities, I will always bounce back to my original configuration. And that's why they eventually have let me go. But it has taken a shitload of time for them to discover that. And eventually, in all of these encounters, as I bounce back and remember who I was because I've been put into a transgression spiral, then I discover who and what I am through the transformation processes that they forced me into. And that's what I mean. Technically, there is no victim. And you will say, well, Randy, you got that configuration when you came in. We had the one from the 4th cycle and we're fucked. No, because that's part of your template and original energy system as well. It's part of the original configuration we put in after the timeline event and the fall of the first 4 cycles, especially in the renewed 4th cycle after the fall of Atlantis. So it is part of your system. It is just because you are so parasited and so base program oriented and human emotion oriented that you twist these inner directives in a manner so that the life forms that are a part of you can uphold their existence. And that's why I keep saying, work with your emotional field, get to the parasites, change the electrochemical response mechanism, and always choose the highest standards. Always choose the highest purity rate. And that's what the 12 choices of living goes with. And then learn the principles and the laws and the rules to get to the highest progression rate. So that is where we are. And that ties us into the higher order transformative energy system, which I will not go through in deep details, because what I want you to do is take all of this information you have now and then look at this picture, print it out in colors. And then everything you have learned here, if you have listened and kind of understood what I've talked about, then this illustration will be completely intuitively understood, because I've been working through all of the levels. The merged brain vortex with the transmutal mental field processes. Purple, blue, yellow, golden, white. You will see the colors on this one. Or blue, you will see the colors are golden. The golden are the Pleiadian system. That goes with the physical form, that goes with the heart field and the brain field and the root vortex. That is the higher order vibrational field processes. That is part of the LP1 original middle domain. They are part of the Pleiadian projects. You will see the merged heart vortex with the transmuted emotional field processes, then creates the golden energy. That is part of your light body that will then activate the merged brain field and transmuted mental field processes of the lower mental field, which I know I have not dealt with in details, but this is the configuration you are to achieve. That beautiful rings of the original brain vortex goes with the principles, it goes with the trinity structures, it goes with the three triangles I've been talking about. The word, the will, the wisdom, the principle, the rules and the laws. That's your mental field. And then that goes into effectively played out in the highest standards, in the highest purity rate, in the highest progression rate that goes with the vibrational field. It is intuitively given to you there. And you understand that. And that is all to be summed up to the 6-dimensional upper template, which many of us does not have anymore. But you can recreate a new one that will then connect to the original solar system library. That's gone, unfortunately. So otherworldly crafts, if you're part of stellar races, or inserted host fields, if you're part of the parallel universal matrix, that's the way you will work. Or for those of us who are choosing to do the original restoration program to get out through the gate system of the middle domain. That top there, that 6-dimensional upper level which you are creating is your orb. That's the 6-dimensional level of you. It's all intuitive. So that top level is the 6th. That's the orb. The blue is the 5th and the golden is the 4th. And then you have at the bottom the emplacement into racial grids. And that is the part of you that you need to develop to be able to reconnect to the restoration program field by going through the gate system. So that is a configuration that is kind of when we talk about the whole higher order vibrational field, everything that you have there and you configure that correctly into code systems will then go down to the racial grids, release you there, and then that will be cleared and purified and pulled up to the upper template. So you have that configuration when you shift out of this reality. So that's how it works. Very simple and very complex. Thank you.